Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Fuente and Meerapfel present Meet the Professor. Hello, world.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Today is a very, very special Sunday. We have one of the greatest cigar journalists of all times on our show, no other than the one and only executive editor, I've made that mistake before, executive editor of the Cigar Aficionado, Mr. David Savona. David, welcome to the show.
Wow, thanks very much for that great introduction. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy that I'm on this side of the mic.
Oh, now you're getting me scared.
Yeah, when we have a journalist like you, I'd rather be on this side of the mic. Welcome to the show, David. This is a huge honor for all of us. On behalf of Carlito, Fuente, Melanie, and of course, the professor, we would like to welcome you to this very, very special show. Professor, good afternoon.
Well, hey, good, David. It's an honor, a pleasure for us to have you on the show. And when I approached you, you very graciously said yes, and we'll thank you for that. And David and I have been friends for a long time. We're big Yankee fans. Gordon Mott out there, don't worry. We're going to nail you bad later on, but let's get into business. David, 25 years at Cigar Aficionado. You've had a wonderful career, one of the most honest journalists that I've known, great palate, passionate about cigars. I mean, what else can I say about you? And I'm going to ask you one very simple question. Do you remember the first cigar you ever smoked, and what was it?
I do remember it very well, and I'm ashamed to say it wasn't a very good one. I was pretty young, younger than I probably should admit to. I was let's just say a teenager, and I bought an El Producto Excepcionales. I went into a convenience store, bought a 5-pack or a 3-pack, whatever it was. My buddy and I lit them up. Had no idea what I was doing. I bit the end off, which I didn't have to do. I had tobacco going everywhere. That was my first cigar. Very a machine-made, mass-market cigar. But there was something about it that I liked that got me going back later on. So that was my first cigar experience.
It was probably because of the name, right? You chose it because of the name.
It was because of the name and the place I went into, and I was too young to be buying cigars at the time. It was not a tobacco shop. It was a little convenience store that had a couple of cigars behind the counter. So I kind of grabbed the first thing that was at eye level, and somehow the guy rang me up. I was a pretty big kid back then, so I guess I looked older than I was. That was my first cigar.
Could it be that you knew that George Burns used to smoke El Producto and that influenced you that?
I don't know at that age. I just knew I wanted to try a cigar for some reason or other. And who knew that that would lead to a career with cigars?
But let's go to more serious now. Okay, you went to El Producto and some other stuff. Your first really premium cigar, do you remember?
Yeah, my first real premium cigar was would have been a Macanudo Portofino.
In the tube.
In the tube. A slim cigar, Connecticut wrapper, mild cigar, good beginner cigar that I smoked and enjoyed. That was probably the first handmade cigar that I smoked. When I was in college, I used to smoke a better level of machine-made cigar. I smoked, if anyone remembers, the FD Grave Moneymakers.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Those were good for a college guy's budget. About the $1.50 a pack, I guess, for 4 cigars. They were all tobacco, broadleaf wrapper. That was my college smoke back in the day, a long time ago.
So you were working, I think it was 5 years from what I read, with another magazine. All of a sudden you see this on the newspaper that Cigar Aficionado was looking for somebody. You applied there, you go interview there. Who interviewed you at that time?
The first person I interviewed with was Gordon Mott. I had an interview with Gordon. We clicked a little bit, and then I had an interview with George Brightman, and then I finally had my first interview with Marvin Shanken. And I remember Marvin mispronounced my name when he first met me, so I made it a point to pronounce my name correctly, so maybe he would remember it. I don't know. I was really, really interested in getting that job. I was working, like you said, at a different magazine, a little business magazine. I didn't have much of an audience, and I liked cigars. I started picking up Cigar Aficionado magazine, and I said, boy, I really want to work at this magazine. So when I saw the ad and I actually got in the door, I was off to the races. I was like, I'm going to try to make these guys remember me. I really, really want to work here.
Was that before or after you were interviewed by our friend there?
As soon as I got the call back, I just knew I wanted it so bad. And it came down to two. The last interview with Marvin was at his house, and we smoked a cigar together, and we started to click. And when at the end of that interview, when he shook my hand and said, "You got the job," I don't think aside from when my son was born and getting married to my lovely wife Manuela, I don't think I've ever been happier in my life.
That's beautiful.
So you get hired. You go into Cigar Aficionado in Manhattan. So what were the first things you started to do there?
Well, I remember Gordon Mott telling me, he said, you don't really have to buy cigars anymore. We have quite a few cigars here. Because I actually brought cigars to the job my first day at work, which was really not thinking things through. I brought my own little ashtray. I bought a box of cigars. He goes, we're going to give you cigars. There's a lot of cigars at Cigar Aficionado. And they really started tutoring me. I mean, I liked cigars, but I wasn't an expert by any means. So they had me read all the back issues. And then George Brightman especially was really a cigar mentor to me. He would give me, bags of cigars and say, okay, I want you to smoke these. Tell me what you think about them. Take notes on them. And it started off with, cigars with their regular bands on. Then they had cigars with the test bands where they're numbered, so you don't know what the identity is. But it took a long time before, my notes and then my scores became a part of the tasting panel. They really gradually led me into it to learn about the process.
Interesting. Let me ask you this. Have you ever, on a blind test, smoked a cigar? Because it's blind. A lot of people don't understand. It's totally blind with a code, whatever the code is.
Sure.
You smoke it, you go through it, and after you smoked it, you enjoyed it. And through your mind, you're going like, what the hell is this? I mean, I've never tasted this note. I've never picked up whatever it is on it. And then after, you guys tabulate whatever it is, and you go like, I didn't have a clue. Has that ever happened to you that's just blown you away?
Oh, sure. I don't know what I'm smoking when I'm smoking blind. If this had been a cigar I'm smoking blind, I just have a number on it or a number in a letter if it's Cigar Insider. And yeah, a lot of times, I get something that I really, really love, and then you don't find out the identity for weeks or sometimes a month or more, depending on what the cycle is. So yeah, that happens a lot. And then I get surprised a lot. Sometimes you see things that you didn't think you would like that you scored very well, or sometimes the opposite, things that you thought would do better that you didn't like quite as much. The blind tasting process, which we've done at Cigar Aficionado since even before I worked there, since the very first issue in the autumn of 1992, it's always been done to give the cigars a fair chance. So we don't know the maker, we don't know the country, we don't know the price. And when you take away all those influences, we think you get a really objective look at a cigar. It's the way we've done it since day one. It's the way we've always done it and always will.
I'm going to ask you this. First time you smoked an Opus, and I know Carlito's going to get into this also too. What was your impression? And you and I talked a little bit about that yesterday, but that's off the record. What did you think of that, the first time you smoked an Opus?
I not only can tell you what I thought, I could tell you the exact time. It was my first trade show right when I joined the company, and the cigar wasn't on the market yet. But I believe it must have been Carlito who gave some to Gordon, early prototypes. And I happened to be at the Cigar Aficionado booth at that trade show. I'm inquisitive. I was a new guy. I'm kind of looking around, and I see Gordon opening up this box, and I saw this. I don't know if it had a band. It must have had the band because I remember the band. It had a band. I saw this beautiful, beautiful band, and I read the stories and I knew about the project. I said, "Is that what I think it is?" He looked at me. He was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay." He gave me one. He said, "You got to take the band off. You can't smoke it with the band on. But if you're gonna smoke it, take the band off." Okay. And I lit it up right there, and I remember that taste. It was exceptional. It was strong. It was rich. It had that leather, that black cherry, that spice. It really tasted very different. Carlito, I see you smiling. I mean, I was smiling that day. That was a game-changing cigar, to say the least. I liked it from the beginning, and I've loved them ever since.
You know, I'm smiling because you're bringing back a lot of memories. And I assumed that cigar had a original Don Carlos band, because we didn't have a band at that time. And it was Project X from Planet 9. I assume. I don't remember the exact moment that was. But I'm laughing when you mentioned Black Cherry. And I'm laughing because it's a wonderful thing, because we all learn every day. We learn something new. I remember in the very beginning, one of the descriptions that Cigar Aficionado gave on the Fuente Besex, on the taste and finish and so forth, was a hint of Black Cherry. And we all know, God rest his soul, Rico Barreau, all the things that we did. I actually have in the factory, which you've probably seen, we even put it out on an ad. It was the 858, the Goddess of Tobacco, with my grandfather and everything. And we included Black Cherries in the corner because it frustrated me. I said, cigars taste like cigars. They taste like tobacco. They could be mild, strong, bitter or sharp or this or that. And that completely blew my mind so much. I got so frustrated. I said, what the hell do they know about what taste? They don't know Black Cherry, And it's part of my history and everything. And every time I light a Fuente Besex, I'm looking for that note of Black Cherry. I don't find it often.
You haven't found it?
But once, and I said, God damn it, man, they got it. And that Black Cherry, and really, I think that, no, I don't think. I am absolutely convinced that bringing these tasting notes, which was Cigar Aficionado exclusively, who brought all these tasting notes and associations with things that bring out your memory of things that it could, like Jose says many times, could be chocolate, but it's not a sweet, Hershey chocolate. It's like a dark bitter chocolate, a baker's chocolate, and so forth. And all these things have really enhanced the world of cigars. And I think that was probably the biggest contribution to this boom of cigars and people enjoying cigars, to understanding and learning about cigars. And that was, and when you mentioned Black Cherry, I was cracking. I don't want to laugh. And it's something that I've learned and I've changed. And now I'm looking for all these notes and everything, and it's just that much more fun. And people understand that and everything. And it's, it's special. And I owe it to Cigar Aficionado for that. I was wrong.
Our tasting notes certainly have gotten comments over the years. There was a couple of times I remember we would get phone calls from readers. There was an older gentleman who would call up, and sometimes a phone call got passed around. It made it to me, and the guy's like, "You talk about chocolate in these cigars. I just keep smoking. I don't taste the chocolate. Help me out. Where can I get the chocolate?" So it's just a process we've done to try to make the cigars explainable. So but it does it has its share of controversy.
All right, David, before we move on, there's a family which is not on the video call, but which is obviously following the show with us. There's Cynthia Fuente, which is reaching out. She says, David, we welcome you today. She's so excited for you to be part of the show. Sending all my love to you and Manuela, Cynthia Fuente, and then, of course, Ciro, who says, big hug, David. So everybody sends their love, the whole family. I think Liana's there. Everybody's out there. Yes, they are sending you their love and lots of kisses. And of course, good health. David, we're going to send you the fastballs now. You were part of a magazine. You are part of a magazine that revolutionized and changed our industry. Carlito's been in the industry. His family's been in for generations and generations. So have I. We've seen moments in the industry where there was not much of anything and then lots of everything and everything in between. You were given a flame at a certain moment where the boom had come to an end. That's a very difficult position to be in. The expectancies must have been very high. Obviously, there was a past, there was a fundamentals that were already established, and you were asked to guide this through the future. Tell us a little bit about that. What were those challenges for you? What were the difficulties and the struggles?
Sure. When the cigar boom came to an end in the late 90s?
Well, more when you started taking the helm and having to direct this magazine, this institution, which created this boom, and all of a sudden finds itself in a position where the boom's no longer there.
Oh, gotcha. Well, I was a reader of Cigar Aficionado before I came there. I enjoyed the magazine, and I was hired to run Cigar Insider. And then over the years, I got promoted, senior editor of the magazine, and finally, now I'm the executive editor. I was given the responsibility to take over the job started by Gordon Mott, who was Marvin Shanken's original executive editor of the magazine. And Gordon prepared for his, I don't want to say departure, because he's still a part of the magazine. We call Gordon semi-retired. He's still a contributing editor, but he's no longer executive editor. He planned this out so well and so long that over the time between the day he announced his change and the day that I took over for him, he prepared me so well for the role that it was, I would think, a very seamless transition. I looked upon it as a very big responsibility to be stepping into his shoes. And I've got a big rack at in my office of magazines, going back to the very first one of Cigar Aficionado. And every once in a while, I turn around and look at that, and I see all the magazines that were produced under Gordon's command. And then I see the very few that I've done under mine. And I always look and I say, okay, don't mess this up. This is a big deal. This is an important magazine. These are big shoes to fill. Don't screw it up. And I look upon it as a big challenge, a big honor. I am honored that Marvin Shanken would put me in this role and trust me with this role. And it's not just to Marvin and to Gordon and to all the people at the magazine. It's to all the wonderful readers of this book who really are one of the big reasons that it's such a success. Without the readers of Cigar Aficionado, we wouldn't be here going on, looking ahead to our 30th anniversary coming up very shortly. And in addition to that, looking at people like you and Carlito and Jose, this wonderful cigar industry that's such a part of the magazine too. It's a big deal. You're making me scared for my job now. This is that's a serious question, my friend.
No, not quite the contrary, David. I mean, everybody respects you so much, and I think the way that you're navigating these waters is incredible. Which leads me to my next question. The industry is contracting. It's an industry which expands, contracts, every 20, 30 years. We see this happening, sometimes shorter, sometimes later. But the point is, right now, a lot of the small players, a lot of the independent family businesses that you saw during the boom, and you saw in the recent years after the boom, unfortunately, are struggling. Some of them are still in business, many of them aren't. And this is changing the nature of the industry again, and obviously is going to change the nature of the magazine. These are challenges which I'm sure are being discussed. How does a magazine such as Cigar Aficionado deal with this?
Well, like any good business, I think you have to adapt and have to be aware of what changes are going on. If I go back to that first day when I joined Cigar Aficionado, I look at a business that was in some ways very, very similar in terms of the book, but in so many other ways, it's changed quite a bit. Back in that time, we were a quarterly magazine, so we're published 4 times a year. We had no web presence, didn't exist. We didn't have any newsletters. I was there to start one. And over the years, we've added newsletters, Cigar Insider, Cigar Watch. Cigar Watch comes out every week. Cigar Insider now comes out every month. Twice a month. We have an incredible online presence. Our digital presence is massive right now. We have a website that's updated every day. We have videos that we produce. We're changing as we evolve. The magazine still is at its core what it was when we started, but now with this rich online presence and our social media presence that involves updates multiple times a day, we're much more actively involved in getting the word out to our readers than we were when I started at the company. It was a 4 times a year interaction back in 1995 on my first day, and now it's multiple times a day interaction. And that's part of what we have to do to survive and adapt. Years ago, we made the change in terms of the magazine from a quarterly to 6 times a year, so it came out more frequently. And we also made the change of going from big cigar, little aficionado to small cigar, big aficionado, without ever really changing the tenor of what we were putting in the book. The magazine has always been about more than just cigars. And I think if we had only been about cigars from the beginning, we would have run out of things to talk about. But we've always been a magazine from the very beginning about the good life, enjoying, fine wines, good travel, luxury automobiles. Always, though, with a focus on the cigar. Interesting personalities that smoke cigars. Over the years, people have said, well, don't you want to change that? Don't you want to maybe move away from the cigar thing? And I've always said, cigar aficionado without the cigar is not cigar aficionado anymore. It becomes something else. We've never been a magazine for everybody. We've never tried to be a magazine for everybody. And I think if we ever tried to do that, we'd be making a mistake. We need to stay with our core and talk about great cigars and all the things and that good life that go around it.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And what about the income from advertisements? I mean, that's part of it's one of the main pillars of a magazine, or of the media in general. How does this shift in markets and in the different suppliers in the market have an effect on that pillar?
Well, as the leading cigar magazine in the world, we get a lot of our ads, of course, from cigar makers. So if there are fewer cigar makers, one could extrapolate that would have a negative impact on our advertising. We've gone through the ups and downs over the years. When the magazine started, it was the cigar boom started right after the magazine started. So in those early days, lots and lots of cigar companies. If you go back to some of those earlier issues of Cigar Aficionado and flip the pages, you'll see there's some cigar brands that just aren't around anymore. So that's part of the natural evolution. Some come, some go. But we've survived the end of the cigar boom. The late 1990s were a crazy time for the cigar business with oversupply and the catch up of the end of the boom. Then we had the reaction after 2001, the horrible terrorist attacks on our country, and now we're dealing with the effects of COVID-19. So we're still here, we're still doing well, and we're adapting as best we can.
It's horrible, and it is horrible. The COVID-19 has hurt people. It has immobilized businesses. It has shut businesses down. It's a devil, but it's also an opportunity for companies such as yourselves to get into people's households. People, in certain respects, may have time. They've changed their working habits. How has that changed the way you operate in terms of Cigar Aficionado?
Well, first and foremost, the entire staff of the magazine has shifted from a work in the office situation in New York City to a work from home situation. And we've adapted very well to putting out a magazine with the whole staff working remotely. We've put out 2 magazines so far since the start of this pandemic, entirely from home. And I'm very proud of my team for being able to adapt and work with fewer resources and being able to do what they normally do in an office with all kinds of support, technological support, the actual physical resources of an office situation, and being able to do that from home. We did that by building in more time into our process, and you have to plan for internet outages, all kinds of quirks that you won't normally see in an office situation. And knock on wood, it's gone very well. Our small team has done a great job, a heroic job of working from home. So it's gone very well for us. We've also had to shift our consumer events. We throw big smokes, and those, of course, have been put on hold and shifted to the fall. we were supposed to have a big Smoke Meets Whiskey Fest in Florida back in April, and that was shifted to late October. So we still have to see how we get back into the business of doing our consumer events where our readers come together and meet the great cigar makers of the world and enjoy fine cigars with them. So that's the piece of the puzzle we still have to figure out.
Well, maybe we'll see an online Big Smoke coming up soon. David, I'd like to pause this 1 second. We have I can see my little eye is spying somebody that's just joined us, which I'd like to spotlight, Mr. Carlos Fuente Jr. Carlos, welcome to the show.
Hi, how's everyone doing? I was listening to my father speaking, and I was listening to David. I just wanted to show I'm wearing my Cigar Aficionado hat today.
I love your hat. That's wonderful. Fantastic. Good to see you.
You too.
You know, I wanted you to see my boy. I know how proud you are of Max and everything. We all are. And I know how he's grown. So you can imagine, David, we've known each other for a long time. I remember, the very first, the first Big Smokes and, the very first everything. And, time changes. But what is so rewarding and fulfilling is to know that there's a future and young generation coming into the cigar industry that are passionate and that respect the tradition and the legacy of people who have really made a difference in our lives, as Marvin has, Gordon, yourself, Gregory, and everybody. And, I just wanted him to be here and to listen to you. And I want to say one thing. He's my boy. So he's going to do what I asked him to do, especially because it's David Savona. But I just want to mention, for the first time on Meet the Professor, I find out that Ciro Cancella is listening. He's in the audience. Italians stick together. It's his children's birthday. Happy birthday, Chirito. Happy birthday, Laura, the twins. Not Laura, I'm sorry. Valeria. Laura is the mom. Happy birthday. Today's their birthday, the twins, Ciro's twins. And he's taking time out of his time to give you support, David, and follow you. I'm telling you, watch those Italians. They stick together.
That's I appreciate all the support. Thank you for joining on such a big day.
Of course, man. Hey, listen, everybody loves you, man. You don't have any idea how many messages we received and everything through social media, through WhatsApp and everything when they heard you're going to be the guest. Everybody just speaks wonders of you. You're a big boy, but you're a big-hearted boy. And the love and the respect that you shared with everyone, that you've given everyone all these years, has earned you a position that we all respect and look up to.
I am deeply honored. I'm humbled. It's I feel the love, and it comes right back. Let me tell you that for sure. We've known each other for a long time, and it's always good to spend time with you, even though it's across the internet and not side by side.
Yeah, exactly. But that young man who went to his office, his place of work for the first time with his own cigar ashtray, has really developed and grown up to be a leader in the cigar industry. Just as important as any cigar maker, any tobacco farmer, or any great consumer, because, together we're all one. We're all part of one family, and everyone is important to keep this love just spreading around the world. And thanks to information, thanks to Marvin's leadership, thanks to you and everyone, that message is getting out, education is getting out. And I just want to add, you were the only magazine, and the first that was for consumers. Before it was only smoke shop or tobacconists. And you were the first, absolute first, and others have followed your foot. But I have heard from other magazine editors that Cigar Aficionado opened the doors for them. And the Cigar Aficionado is considered the Bible of the cigar industry. So, you have always been the leader, and you have given livelihood to so many other people. And that's the way I feel too about the cigar industry. We want young people coming up and everything is good, but you always got to keep improving yourself or remaking yourself or whatever it is. And you've done an incredible job. And for that, I take my hat off, David.
Thank you, Carlito. Coming from you, that means an awful lot. Thank you so much. I really appreciate those kind words.
No, you're welcome.
All right, back to us, David. David, I have a very serious question for you.
Okay.
That is, after so many years of being behind the scenes of the cigar industry, of having watched people, spoken to people, questioned people, and gathered all the information you've managed to gather. How in hell are you able to stay impartial?
Well, you have to. It's the only way it works. You know, I mean, and it's a small and wonderful industry made up of such fine people. You know, I've made so many friends over the past 25 years. I've seen you over and over again. It makes you reluctant to want to, it makes you reluctant to want to say bad things about good people. When you rate cigars, you just have to take the feelings and the relationships out of it. That's why it helps to be a blind tasting. So, you know, you give good ratings to people you like, you give bad ratings to people you like, and vice versa. It's the only way to do it. Impartiality is key, and we really do that not only in our tasting, but also in our reporting. When we do the news, and Cigar Aficionado magazine isn't a news magazine; it's a magazine with long feature stories. But we really report the news with Cigar Insider and on CigarAficionado.com. And as I was instructed by Gordon Mott, I instruct my writers now. You know, report the news. So the writer does not belong in the story. You're not supposed to be taking a stand. You know, we're just reporting on what's happening. Get the facts. Make sure the facts are correct. And especially in today's day and age when there's kind of the rush to be first, especially on the internet. Break the news. I tell my guys, I want to be first, but it has to be right. So don't rush it to be first. Make sure everything is correct. Take your opinion out of it. Get the facts straight. Because our words mean a lot. You know, words in social media, online, in stories, they resonate. And when they come from Cigar Aficionado, they really resonate in this very small industry. So it's absolutely imperative that when we report on something, someone getting bought, someone coming out with a product, someone changing something, those facts have to be correct. It's very dangerous to try to blast things out and be first and to get your facts wrong. So the most important thing for any writer, but especially I say for our writers, is to make sure to get our facts straight.
Does theory and practice match up? And what I want to say by that is, you know the theory. Aged tobacco should taste better. Proper construction should smoke better. It doesn't match up. When you get those results, do they match up?
I'd say usually. I mean, there's always surprises. There's always ones that pop up and you're like, wow, really? This came out like that? It doesn't necessarily make sense. I'd say by and large, the theory matches with the practice. We look at the ratings. You look at the ratings. We know who's really taking the time doing things right, and I think those good practices resonate in the cigar business. This cigar I'm smoking right now, the Arturo Fuente Don Carlos Eye of the Shark, former Cigar of the Year, one of the best cigars ever made, in my opinion. This is where good practice turns into great ratings. I don't think we were breaking any new ground by saying this is such a great cigar. People knew it, but this is just an amazing cigar.
Okay. Cigar Aficionado. You are the elected, I'm not sure. I was going to say the elected president. Maybe I should say the non-elected dictator. But in any case, press such as the Cigar Aficionado leads the industry. It represents the industry. It is the voice of the industry, and it's the voice of the people, both in manufacturing and in terms of the consumers. That is an enormous responsibility, one which you have obtained, gained, achieved. How do you put that to good use?
Well, I think in terms of the pressing items of the day affecting the cigar industry, first and foremost right now, the overarching FDA government regulations. I think where we put our position to good use is by getting the word out about what the horrible things the U.S. government is doing to cigar makers. It's just every barrier to entry possible one could imagine in a free market business is being put into the place, blocking cigar makers from doing their job. It's when I first started in this business, when I'm talking to cigar makers, they always worried about competition. Actually, the first thing they worried about when I first started in this business was making enough cigars. Because it was the days of the cigar boom, they couldn't get enough supply. People were scratching their heads, running around, trying to get enough cigar rollers, enough materials, enough tobacco, great companies like yours. That was the problem of the day. Then when the market contracted, they worried about competition, how to make changes. Now, the first, second, and third problem on everyone's mind, and the thing that takes up so much time, is government regulation. So many cigar makers right now spend so much of their time trying to fight the U.S. government. It's amazing cigar makers are still able to do such a great job making cigars. So it's our job to try to let the readers know what these cigar companies are going through so they could use their voices and use their get together as a voting bloc and let the leaders know, hey, the cigar industry deserves a break. There's been some good news on that front, but not nearly enough over the last couple of years. It's really a shame. It's really a shame that people can't come into the business and make new cigars, and the people that are in the business have to fight so hard to sell a legal product. It's a head scratcher. It doesn't make any sense at all.
The United States of America represents, I would probably presume, 60 to 70% of the world consumption. Maybe more, God knows, but of the premium handmade cigar market. Your presence in the United States is huge. What does the rest of the world mean to you? What is your strategy for ex-United States of America?
Cigar Aficionado as a print magazine is far, far bigger in the U.S. than it is outside the U.S. We have some, but not massive distribution outside the U.S. On a digital scale, it's much different. Our digital footprint internationally is far bigger because the website crosses borders without effort. And we really see that especially in our top 25 reveal, which happens at the end of every year or at the very beginning of the year, depending on the print schedule. And when we reveal all the top cigars in our top 25. And when we watch the analytics online, we see it lighting up, of course, in the U.S., but it also starts lighting up around the country, around the world too. So that top 25 resonates on a global scale, and therefore the Cigar Aficionado word really gets out much more on a digital platform than it does on a print platform. And that holds true also for our videos and our other online resources. We recently put up the complete interview that Marvin Shanken did with Michael Jordan. It's a 1-hour interview that was filmed back when we did our 2017 cover story on Michael Jordan. And previously we'd only shown small clips of that, but Marvin said recently, hey, with all this renewed interest in Michael Jordan, we've got this interview. Let's show the whole thing. And people have really tuned into that, not just in the U.S., but also around the world, as Michael Jordan is such a worldwide phenomenon. Everybody knows that man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Cigar Aficionado is one of the, well, if not, yeah, the biggest informative press in the industry. What's your pitch on investigative press, and how do you promote that within your organization?
Investigative press? You mean like? I'm sorry. Can you go into more detail? Like,
I mean, trying to figure out behind the scenes, cross information. How do you, the dirty journalism, as the journalists would call it.
We always, look, we seek to celebrate rather than to tear down. Our mantra is to, we are all cigar smokers at Cigar Aficionado that put out the magazine. We love the cigar. And so when we report on something in the magazine, especially, we're seeking to elevate rather than to tear down. And there's so much good in this industry. I think there's a lot more to be gained from the positivity of looking for the good and writing about the good, so our readers can find those good products and read about these wonderful families and people that produce the cigars they love, to kind of demystify the process and to help cigar smokers all over the world. So that's, we've done our share of investigative reporting for things that we think merit that type of a process. And again, when we do a story like that, we're just as careful as possible to make sure everything that we report is correct. So we don't really deal with rumor. We don't deal with things that we can't back up. Because again, getting back to what I said before, we know the power of our words. And the last thing I want to do, or anyone at the magazine wants to do, is to put something out there that that might get a lot of clicks and get a lot of attention. But you know what? If you can't back it up, if it's not ironclad, it's like building a house. If you've got a bad foundation, that thing's going to crack and crumble. That's just not the right way to do things. So we want to make sure that foundation is correct and everything is accurate when we put things out. So that's our mantra.
Well,
You're
I
absolutely
hope
right, David. You won't be celebrating 30 years in the next couple of years in 2022 if it wasn't for that business model and that philosophy. So I take my hat off.
Thank you, Carlito.
absolutely. And I hope a lot of journalists out there are listening to David there, because the world would be a more peaceful place if people took that pitch. So God bless you.
But let me tell you something. First of all, I got to say something. I have not asked David any questions because I feel so uncomfortable to ask David a question, because since David came into our world, David has been interviewing me. And I want to say that there is no one in this cigar world outside my immediate family that knows more about the history of Fuente, the truth, and every little step and every struggle and everything than David Savona. With a close second, Gordon Mott, because I'm sure everything that David has written, everything that David has done, every recording, Gordon Mott has heard it. And, David is somebody that is just so close to, not close to our family, close to the cigar world. I don't want to say my family. And he's absolutely right. And what I want to say is that, you know what, we've many times we've gotten ratings that say, hey, they made a mistake. They must have gotten the wrong cigar. They must have gotten confused with the cigar. I'm sure every manufacturer has thought the same thing.
Sure.
Because we all pour our hearts to what we do. But you know what? It's no matter what, we're grateful, and I just hope they continue doing what they're doing. And I approve, and we just move on to the next page and to the next day. And I consider it's just one big family. And I agree that we have to promote the love, the goodness, the hard work of families, of people, and the enjoyment of life. And that's what Cigar Aficionado is. It is a vehicle to celebrate life. And I enjoy it. I enjoy every issue, and it's something very special. So, David, thank you. Sorry to interrupt, man, but I just don't have the heart. How could I interview you when you've been the one interviewing me all my life? And
Carlito, I have to say that some of my fondest memories are doing stories on you. And I think my first big story that I did was on the release of Fuente Opus X, and I interviewed you at a Big Smoke. You were very patient, listening to a young man's questions, maybe some of them, a little bit more boring than others. And some of my fondest memories are of sitting with you, and I'm looking over your shoulder now at the picture of your wonderful father. And I remember sitting with you and your dad at the gazebo at Chateau de la Fuente. One hot day, we smoked Opus X. After Opus X, we were drinking strong coffee. It was hot. And I heard all these incredible stories about your wonderful family business. I mean, it goes back to 1912. The Fuente family story, it makes a writer's job easy. From the beginning in Key West, Florida, to the humble beginnings in Tampa, and then breaking out, becoming national, going to the Dominican Republic. I mean, it's writer's gold. It's just such a
David,
good story to write.
My father loved you. He loved you, and you know that, Cynthia, Liana, everybody. He doesn't open up to everybody, but you have that charm. And I don't want it to go to your head because I know it never will. I'm just joking. This is the joke between friends and people know each other for a long time. And you have that charm and everything that you build confidence in people that they're able to open up. But that's not something that is, that's just not something of the moment. That's something that's earned over many, many years of relationship. I want to say something to those that are listening. I never know, no matter what the interview is, what David Savona is going to write or what he's going to edit or what he's going to say or not say. I never know. A lot of times it's not what I want or how I would like for it to go, and everything that, you know, I would wish for promotional purposes. David might choose what words to use. I am never 100% in, you know, in agreement with some of the ratings that we get slammed and everything. But I respect David because once David and Cigar Aficionado, the staff, Gregory, everybody who's there now, I got to include everyone. It's a team. And Marvin, everything they've done is proven to be very beneficial, very, you know, path opening. It's just been so good for everybody that, as David knows, sometimes we just keep quiet and wait for the next, you know, the next couple of months to go by and just pray, you know, and it's the way it is. But when you look at the big picture, and I hope there's cigar manufacturers listening, especially the younger ones, the new companies that are coming into business, be patient, because everything, just keep focusing on what you do. And it's good. It's all good. All these, you know, all these things are very good, and it's been very beneficial for the whole industry. And you know, you've been amazing, my brother. And I say brother, and forgive me, but with all due respect, because our relationship as a friend has been one thing when we're having sushi. And that's not often. I don't think we've had sushi in the last 12 years and everything.
Not often enough.
Yeah, probably. But besides that, as an editor, as someone in a magazine, there's such an arm's distance. And you've proven that. You explained to me why things are the way they are. And Cigar Aficionado is going to do what's best for the magazine and the industry and what their professionalism is and their ethics. It's not about Fuente. It's not about all my other colleagues and family members. It's not to promote any family. It's what's doing right for the consumer and the reader. And that's professionally the way it should be. That's why you'll be celebrating your 30th birthday. And happy birthday. It's coming soon.
I'm so glad you said that about the duty to the industry and to the reader. And that really is a message that comes down right from the top. And when I say the top, I mean Marvin Shanken, who created Cigar Aficionado, is my boss, of course. Marvin is the guiding force behind what we do. And I already mentioned my bookshelf. I've got a thing that on the other side of my office that I wrote in hand. It was from a conversation I had with Marvin not too long after he made me executive editor. And we were talking about the magazine and what goes into the magazine and what has to happen. And he looked at me and said, David, you know, it's all about the reader. And I said, yeah, I know. He goes, no, David, it's all about the reader. And I wrote that down. I wrote it in big letters, and that sits there across from my desk. So whenever, you know, you wonder what do you have to do, that's the message. And coming from the owner of a magazine, having that mantra, that's as simple and as good as it gets. And that's pure. And, you know, hats off to Marvin for having that directive, that very simple and important directive. That's our mission. I think it's also important to know that you're talking about stories that we do and ratings that we give. I don't know if everyone knows this out there. You know it, of course, because you've been part of it since the beginning. But when we do a story on Fuente, you don't see the story before we publish it. You never see the ratings before we publish them. And the times you've been named Cigar of the Year, unless the word leaked somehow, you don't hear it from us. You see it on the internet like everybody else.
That's absolutely true. I'm testimonial for that, and I'm absolutely true. We never know what's going to happen. Sometimes it's good, sometimes not as favorable. It's the way the cards fall, and it's been fair and been real, and I'm just happy to be part of it. It's been wonderful for everybody, and I think that brings a lot of excitement, the unknown, because even to the time, I don't know if I should share this, but we're speaking, and this is a family program. It's not about brands or marketing or anything like that. That's not the intention. But I remember I was traveling a lot, and I don't remember where I came from. Must have been a red eye. I was so tired. You know, and at that, I had my eyes fixed recently, or improved, let's put it that way, because they were doing really well when I left surgery. but that's been a year and they're starting to fade again. I think that comes with age. But anyway, I'm coming off a plane. I'm so tired and I'm walking and I'm going to Concourse E, which you all know in Miami. Concourse E is the little one. And I'm saying, oh crap, Concourse E, I got to come from an international flight and everything. I had gone to the club, whatever, and I'm walking and I kind of glance and I see something that, you know, there's a certain image that becomes iconic or, you know, and I see the hat, the white shirt on, and I'm looking like this and I go, man, it must be like a coffee advertisement magazine. But shit, there, you know, it looks like God, you know, it's something. And I go look at it and I go, oh, I swear to God, I just broke down in tears. I couldn't believe it. I kept looking. I didn't know if I was just, you know, delirious or what it was. And I didn't have, I don't know, man. I just felt so, I had no idea. How did they pull this off? I thought there was going to be an interview, a story of, you know, of our 100th celebration, everything. But what I remember is that, oh my God, I got to, you know, somehow let me just get my breath. I got to call Marvin. I got to write a letter. And I'm not good at writing letters or this. I just think the emotions were so strong. I just couldn't express them. And I get to Santiago, about a week goes by, and somebody tells me Marvin Shank is on the phone. And I go, oh shit. And I remember, like, Marvin, I've been wanting to call you. He says, man, you didn't see it? And I explained to Marvin what it was to me and everything. But that is Cigar Aficionado. You never know what's going to happen. You never know. And I'm testimony as far as the ratings and everything. And I know people, it's been very diverse over the last 28 years. It's been very controversial, but, you know, it's what it is, man. It's the judgment call of people who really believe something. And sometimes I come out okay. Sometimes I win and sometimes I lose. But it is the nature of the game. But most importantly, because of those ratings and those tasting notes, which never existed in the cigar industry before, that has been what has taken the cigar industry to the level that it is today. So when you look at everything that's come out of that philosophy, we are blessed, and I feel that way strongly, that Cigar Aficionado came into our world.
Well, those ratings helped me out because, don't forget, I was a reader first before I was a member of the company. And I didn't know much about cigars. I knew I liked, but I remember seeing my first issue that I got, I started writing down these ratings. I made a little card, and I went into a cigar shop because, you know, everyone wants to pretend they know more than they really do. So I kind of walked into the cigar shop. I started looking at that card. I'm like, okay, that looks good. That looks good. And that helped me explore the cigar shop, kind of demystify the cigar shopping experience for me. So those ratings helped me too before I even was part of the magazine.
All right, David, we have a very special message that came in for you, just for you. And before I pull this gentleman on the show to say a few words to you, I'm going to read out what he wrote. He says, listening to Dave is such an honor for me to see someone I worked with for nearly 20 years, to have become such a leader and strong voice for the industry. It makes me feel like a proud dad. Couldn't ask for more to see someone step into a role that I loved for so long and to do it so well. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gordon Mott. Gordon, you're on the air.
¿Quieres salir en YouTube que quede en historia?
No, I that's all I wanted. I wanted that message to get to Dave. It's just such a treat, and I'm so glad that everyone out there is getting a chance to just see the depth of compassion and love that he has for the industry and his knowledge. You know, it's just an amazing thing to hear and to watch, and kudos.
Gordon, it's so good to hear from you. You're almost bringing tears to my eyes with that message. That is so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Hey, Mexicano. I didn't know that you were. I didn't know you'd be in the audience. That would have been a lot more flattering to you. Te quiero. Thank you.
Te quiero. Muchísimo.
Thank you very much, Gordon.
Oh, thanks, Gordon. He's the best. My God.
David,
And I have to say that it doesn't surprise me that David is who David is. I mean, even though he's a self-made man in certain aspects, he has followed the guidance of one of the greatest that we've had in the industry. And it's turned a magnificent star into a even more polished, magnificent star. Hasn't it, David?
If I could say one thing, I hope Gordon's still listening. You know, you could not ask for a better boss than Gordon Mott. That man is. It was just an absolute pleasure to, and we worked together. But it was to be in the same office with him, to learn from him, to work with him, and now we're kind of like traveling buddies when we travel together. Sometimes in Cuba, sometimes elsewhere. I see him at Big Smokes. He's just a great guy, and I'm a lucky man to have worked for some of the absolute greats in terms of with Gordon Mott and especially with Marvin Shank. And I mean, I love my work. My work is just I'm a lucky guy because of the people I work for and work with, and the magazine I work for, and all you that I get to talk to. All right, you guys got to start. You're making me feel too good here. You gotta tear me down a little bit.
David,
like you do to me.
Oh no, come on.
David, everybody has a bucket list. So in the industry, what's on your bucket list?
What's on my bucket list? I'd say on my bucket list is to get a couple of. There's been a couple of big stars that we've been trying to get on the cover of the magazine that I still would like to get in the future, that people that have been hard to get for whatever reason or another. Someone like Leonardo DiCaprio and maybe George Clooney have been a little elusive over the years. More than that, I want to just continue with this great responsibility of keeping Cigar Aficionado what it has been all these years, and continue to let it adapt to these changing conditions. And just to keep on doing what we're doing, you know, to keep Marvin's vision true to his vision, and to maintain the standard of excellence set by Marvin and Gordon, and keep connecting with our readers. Like I said, our readers are the best in the world. They reach out to us at Big Smokes. They send us wonderful letters. We see them on social media. I just want to keep making Cigar Aficionado a part of their lives, and having them enjoy it, hopefully as much as we all enjoy producing it.
You have been in Dominican, you've been in Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Cuba. So what country is on your bucket list that you know that one day you'll eventually have to go and see what great tobacco is grown there?
The one big tobacco producing country I have not personally visited, the big one missing on my list would be Cameroon. That's I have not been there. The wrapper from there, as everyone on this call knows, is extraordinary and quite unique. I've never been to Africa, so I would, I don't know when, but I would say that's a trip that's missing from my resume. Getting the boots on the ground in Cameroon and seeing how that wrapper has grown, that would be quite a trip. I don't know when I would make it, especially considering all the stuff that's going on in the world right now.
I'm picking you up tomorrow.
If I may say something, David, I have never been myself. Going back with Richard Meerapfel, we spoke about it so much, but there was always something. We always waited for tomorrow, and then that government takeover happened, and everything was lost. And if I'm healthy, I promise you I won't interfere with you. I promise I won't get involved. I would like to join you on that trip, because if there's a situation where I'm faced with danger, I would like that boxer that David Savona, the boxer, to be near me to defend me. So, because I don't know about Jeremiah, he's a little fragile, to be honest.
Yeah,
I don't know. The
normal.
boxing days were a long time ago. I think we got to bring our kids, Carlito. I think our kids are going to be tougher than we are right now.
Yeah, I believe so. I'm sure they will. Absolutely.
Well, that seems like a date. We're gonna get half the industry over there. This is wonderful.
I'm gonna be included. Take me too, I think.
All right, the panthers and the
trip.
lizards and the snakes are gonna be thrilled.
Oh, you didn't tell me there were snakes. Okay.
Yes,
Oh,
but
wow.
they're not poisonous. They're harmless.
Oh, okay. That's good.
David, you have, through all the years, you have met, I mean, all the cigar makers, celebrities, the who's who of the industry, singers, actors, everything. Who has been the person that you have interviewed that has impressed you the most?
That's a tough question, Jose.
You can take the fifth.
No, I'm going to answer this. It was a fairly recent one. It was meeting somebody that I really admired from a very young age. And I was a little intimidated to meet him and sit down and have an interview with him. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Wow.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah,
Great.
for the December 2019 cover, his fourth time on the cover, and this one I decided to do myself. And I was supposed
Good
to meet
for
him at
you.
his office, and they called the night before the interview when I was out in the hotel. They said, "Look, Arnold doesn't want to do it in his office. He wants to do it at his home. Is that okay?" I said, "Yeah, of course it's okay." So I went to his house and interviewed him at his house. And I was, this is a man I mean, when I was a kid, my dad got me a weightlifting set, and he got me a book, Arnold's The Education of a Bodybuilder. And I had that book sitting in my attic. So before I flew out to California, I dug that book out. It was all ripped up and stuff. So I brought the book with me. We sat down, we smoked cigars together. Very impressive man, just beyond being Arnold. And he, you met him, I think, you met him before, Carly.
Yes, he's amazing.
Just a
Role model.
Oh my God, yeah, huge charismatic man. Asked very good questions. Very smart man. Very opinionated man. He was tremendous. At the end of the interview, I was like, okay, I got to dig this book out. So I showed him the book and got him to sign it. And he's a very funny man too. I told him my dad bought me the book, and it was a paperback. And he goes, "Oh, your dad couldn't splurge for the hardcover, huh?"
It's amazing. I've always said that after I saw him in the Republican convention many years ago make a presentation, if Arnold Schwarzenegger, Governor Schwarzenegger, would have been born in the United States, he would have had a good chance of becoming a USA president. He's amazing. He really is. He's an incredible man. And big role model for live cigars. He loves animals. You interviewed him. Did you see his pets?
I saw his
They're
pets.
larger than life. They're larger than life.
When I was waiting for him to come out of the house, I was sitting there talking to his assistant, and I kind of looked over the guy's shoulder, and I saw a horse, but it looked like a small horse.
Donkey.
Yeah, I said, is that a pony? He goes, well, it's actually a miniature horse. And Schwarzenegger explained how the horse kind of eats dog out of a dog food bowl and tries to chew his cigar. It's Whiskey, I think the horse's name was. Very, very, about a horse about the size of a dog. I guess when you're Arnold Schwarzenegger, you can have pets like that, Why not?
Well, he's so big, he needs that's his life-size pet, I guess.
David, it's time for Melanie's hotspot. Melanie.
Uh-oh, okay.
Ooh, so this is going to be fun. Since you're doing most of the interviewing, David, I'm just curious, what's the one question that you would have loved to ask people, but you were always scared that it would maybe embarrass them?
Oh, that's an interesting question. What would I add? And again, I'm not used to being interviewed. I'm more used to being the interviewer, so I'm a little uncomfortable with this in this position. I don't know. I try not to ask embarrassing questions, I guess, when I'm doing an interview. I don't know. Most people I've interviewed, I've kind of asked what I wanted to ask, so I don't feel like I've left too much on the table. And again, I mean, it goes back to that model of trying to celebrate rather than to tear down, maybe.
And then second one, what is your most embarrassing moment during an interview?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. One of my first interviews, this is before I worked for the magazine, I did a freelance story on CEOs who smoke. And Marvin and Gordon gave me a list of CEOs that they knew who smoked cigars. And I got an interview with Alan Ace Greenberg, who was then the head of Bear Stearns. And he took the interview, and I had to interview him during his workday. So he was at his trading desk. Imagine this massive trading floor, hundreds and hundreds of people all trading commodities and stocks and whatnot. And he's got a cigar going in his ashtray, and he's not looking at me at all, not paying any attention to the interview. And he's on the phone, putting the phone down, doing this, hitting the computer. And he's giving me yes and no answers. And I'm going through my list, and I've got nothing from this guy. I got nothing I could use. And I said, do you always give yes and no answers? And then he kind of looked at me, and he started getting mad. I'm like, oh, this is not good. I'm getting the man mad. And then he kind of answered a little bit more. And then I said, do you like giving interviews? And then he got really mad. He said, well, I let you in here, didn't I? I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. So that was probably the hairiest moment of any interview that I had done. And in the end, he seemed to be pretty happy to see me go, but it was friendly in the end. But he was a busy guy who just really didn't seem to have the time for me.
Thank you, Melanie. David, being a journalist is like being a professor. You're teaching people a lot of stuff. What is, in your opinion, a message that you want to be remembered by? What is it you want your audience to inherit from your experience, from your heart, from who David Savona is?
I think the message I would like to get out to readers of the magazine and cigar smokers in general is, and this is something I think we try to explain as much as possible and have since the beginning. I just don't think the newcomer or the person that doesn't know a lot about cigars, I don't think people realize, especially when they're new to it, just how much goes into making the cigars they enjoy, how much time, how much knowledge. In terms of Fuente, you're talking on more than 100 years of history. But with any cigar, you're talking about years of effort from the day the seeds are planted to the time it takes to cure, to ferment, to age, to carefully make these cigars and get them to the end user. The thing that surprised me the most when I first started learning about cigars was just that. And I think the thing that I came across after learning this is, my God, how can they put out such a good product for really, in a lot of cases, under $10, given the fact that it takes so long to produce? And the other thing I think people need to know, and the veterans know this very well because they've been around for the ups and downs, but the cigar business years ago was just not a good business. Today, it's a tremendous business. Cigars sell for a good price. Cigar makers do well. But this was a very, very lean business years ago, and a business that was, a lot of people thought was dying because the consumers were on the older side. There wasn't a lot going on. And I think it's important to know the history, that it was not always a good business. There was not a lot of life in it. And it's wonderful that today we have such great companies making such wonderful products, taking the time to make exceptional cigars. And I think it's important to know that, because it's not like making things on a machine. You can't just flip the switch and increase production overnight. It's an industry of patience and knowledge and understanding. And it's really a labor of love. My hat's off to all the people from tobacco grower to cigar maker who make this wonderful industry as good as it is. It's a lot of love, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of travel, nights on the road. It's an exceptional business done by people who really care, who really do a wonderful job to let us all enjoy these beautiful, beautiful cigars.
That's true. That's beautiful. It's like I tell my children, it's years of work, it's decades of learning information, and it's centuries of sacrifice and pride. And
So
yeah,
true, David. David, and I see a story being born from your observation just now, and you're absolutely right. And if history is not documented in a proper way with a respectful source, it is forgotten. And you're absolutely right. The love, sweat, and tears, and I'm talking about all the cigar manufacturers, all the tobacco farmers, of all the distributors, many brick and mortar stores and everything. The blood, sweat, and tears just to be able to bring a product to market, regardless of an embargo, of the challenges of life, of inflation in the 70s when the cigar business, the writing was on the wall, it was going to finish. The early 80s, all the different struggles of, in Nicaragua, the wars, and Honduras, and everything. I think it's so important for people to know the stories, and I'm not referring to the Fuente family. I'm talking about all those wonderful families who we know who they are. That struggle of why today people are enjoying cigars is because people refuse. They refuse to give up, to hang the gloves in a boxing term. They refuse because of their passion, because of their determination and their commitment to fulfill the tradition, to respect the tradition and legacy. And as a journalist, I really believe that history has to be documented, because if not, it will be forgotten forever. And hopefully this is something that maybe I could get a basket of fruit. This could be a winning story. Anyway,
like that.
That's my feelings and sentiment. It's all about the hardworking people, the families from all over, the long-term people who have sacrificed. And this business has been a business sacrifice, as you had pointed out. And there's so many, and a lot of people are aware of that, but there's so many young people who are enjoying cigars just because cigars brings people together and everything. But if they really understand the insides, the history, it becomes part of, the origins and everything that's taken place from the 70s on, from the 60s on, it would be really something amazing. And I think someday somebody's got to document that.
That's a good story idea.
There's not enough pages in Cigar Aficionado to be able to cover it, but it's okay. It's a thought.
I like that idea, Carlito. We're going to do that. We got to run with that.
You got to do a book, David Savona, by David Savona. Since Gordon Mott already has this very successful publication book, which we all know, and maybe David Savona, this could be something that David Savona could do.
It sounds like a good book idea. You're right.
Maybe you're too young for the book yet, but the day will come you will think about it.
God bless you for calling me young, Carlito. Thank you.
David, this is a question that a lot of people, when we announced that you were going to be on the show, said this is something you have to have asked Dave. We talked a little about, and I think Carlito hit it right on the nail on
the nail on the head.
The nail on the head. Yes, it's about the tasting notes, but not only that. I want you to explain to the viewers how important, and I've done it in probably 15 or 1,600 seminars that I've done, how important is the retrohale for a cigar smoker or for a person to learn it and really appreciate the strength and the different notes that cigar smokers pick up, especially you guys at the panel that I know that all of you retrohale. Could you give your thoughts on that, on the importance, so a lot of people understand the importance of retrohale?
I think it's important. It gives you a different idea of the strength of the cigar. When you and retrohaling, as you know, as you bring it into your mouth, you never want to take the smoke into your lungs.
Never.
Don't inhale your cigars. You all know that. Bring it into your mouth and bring it out through the nose. Kind of do it like that. It gives you a greater sensation of the strength. And if you do it with some of Carlito's stronger cigars, it'll you do that with a Fuente Opus X Power Ranger. That's gonna wake you right up. Let me tell you that. Also, I think it's important to because all the flavor comes from your nose. It's all scent, so it brings it more into your nasal cavity. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it. I mean, again, cigars are all about enjoyment, so I don't think you have to do it if you don't want to. But if you're really trying to do all and understand all you want to know about cigars, it's an important part of the process. Also, for that matter, cold taste is important too. Taking a puff before you light it up to kind of get an idea of what the cigar is going to taste like, how the draw is going to be, especially if you haven't smoked that particular cigar before. I don't do it all the time with cigars that I know, like I didn't do it with this one because I'm very familiar with it. But with something new, I like to do the cold draw too. But I think David, retro is important.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, and I think you're too proper and too correct to say the truth. The cold draw is very important. It's the foreplay. It's something that really stimulates your imagination, what you're in for. It's important. All those things. And that's another thing I learned from Cigar Aficionado. I didn't know what that was before. And every time now, as a cigar maker and blender, every time I get a cigar, before I light it up, I do a cold draw. So you all learn. We learn from each other, and I've learned a lot from Cigar Aficionado. But it definitely makes a difference. It gets your mindset. You could tell a lot by a cold draw. Not everything, but it gives you a mindset of what you're going to be, experiencing.
To hear that you've learned something from Cigar Aficionado is humbling, because I personally have learned so much from you. When I get to spend time with you, especially in the factory, and watch you around tobacco and see all the things you do, that every time spent with you around cigars is just adding to the knowledge. It's always an eye-opening and mind-expanding experience. So I treasure my time with you, whether it's in the fields of Chateau de la Fuente or in your factories, or even just sitting down and talking to you, because there's always so much to learn. And I think that's another important thing about this business. It's gone on for so long. There's so many ways of doing things, and there's so much history. I think the biggest mistake anybody could make is to think they know it all. There's always so much more to learn, even if you've been doing it for 25 years. I learned something all the time.
Absolutely true. No
hey, this is the cigar industry. We all think we know it all, right?
Why not?
Hey, David, we got so many questions that are coming in for you. I don't know where to start, and we can't go through them all. It's not possible, but I'm going to read out a few. One of them from our good friends and retailers, Angela Yu. She says, who was the first person you interviewed, David?
The first person I interviewed for Cigar Aficionado, the first person in the business that I interviewed, the first cigar story, the first person in the cigar business I interviewed was Carlos Fuente Jr. Followed closely. Yeah, you were my first real interview.
I didn't know that. I gotta go back and see it. I gotta see.
Going to bed with Carlito Fuente Jr. as a first is dangerous.
Hey, that is what this show is about. It's about family. It's about spreading the love. It's about friendship. It really embodies what the cigar world is about. It's about, and we say in the neighborhood where I grew up, shooting the shit, man. It's doing it like in a family table. And thank you, David. Please, I'm anxious to hear the story.
Oh no, we can't do that.
I'm honored.
That's like losing virginity to some woman who's been around men for 65 years.
I was scared. I was intimidated because I had read I read all the back issues. I read the story. I'm like, this is a big deal. You were very patient. I appreciate that. And then a close second was Ernesto Perez Carillo. I interviewed him in his cigar. It was the first cigar factory that I visited when I took my first big business trip to Miami. So I started with some big ones.
You did. Ernesto's the best. We all know everybody loves him. He's a brother. He's part of our inner family. And, you started with the top, not me, Ernesto.
Oh, yeah, you're the top, trust me.
All right, we got a question coming in, a good question, very good question from Michael. Michael Brayton, he says, what about the evolution of cigars in the last 25 years? compared to what they were when you first started at Cigar Aficionado, David, what has been the change? And Michael, that's a very, very good question.
That's an excellent question. And they really have changed. I mean, you know, you went from having a market that was dominated by Connecticut shade wrappers, milder fillers, a lot of cigars that really, there were a lot of tastes that were very similar in the early days of Cigar Aficionado. And back in those early days, I think there was a lot of distinction on a country by country level. Many Dominican cigars tended to have a certain taste. Honduran cigars had a different taste. Nicaraguan cigars, which were a very small part of the market back then, had a taste. And Cuban cigars had their taste. And then blending started to evolve. New tobaccos came in. People made pioneering moves, such as what happened at Chateau de la Fuente with the planting of Cuban seed wrappers under shade in the Dominican Republic. So I think today the tastes are very different. The choices are much wider. You could still get the cigars that tasted much like what happened in the early days of the cigar industry, those milder cigars. But I think it's just a much more interesting market right now with innovative tobaccos, a lot of different changes, a lot of different flavors. And also, when I first joined the company, it was hard to find cigars because of the cigar boom. The big brands were hard to find. People were on back order. Now it's a much better market for consumers. There are great choices, easy choices, and the cigar shops are full of great cigars.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Professor, before we have to wrap it up, because I would stay on the show for the next 6 hours if I could, but we usually limit the show to 1 hour. We're already 50% over the top.
Ooh, I didn't realize it's going fast.
Right? It always happens.
Yeah, especially with Mr. Savona on the line.
David, you had the privilege to working with Gordon, and we could not have you on and not talk about George Brightman.
Sure.
I mean, I know George and you were very close. You consider him, and many of us consider him one of the most extraordinary palates, without a doubt. So how was it working with George and learning from George?
Oh, working with George was fantastic. George used to have the office down the hall from me in the old office when we were first there. And, you know, I would walk down the hall, go into George's office, we'd light cigars, and George was just an encyclopedia of cigar knowledge. You know, he was like, in a lot of ways, our early Google. You know, you had a question about cigars, you didn't go on the internet to search it up. You went down the hall to check on George. Hey, George, what's this all about? And George had an answer for everything. George really knew the business, top to bottom. He was that real. He was our professor, you know, at Cigar Aficionado back in the day. George knew what was going on, so he was the guy we turned to. And what a great guy to hang with and smoke cigars with and learn about cigars with. And George also had a humidor full of great stuff, so I'd try to nick stuff from him when I could. Hey, George.
Hey, nickname the Pope. Enrico Barone nicknamed him the Pope. Remember the Pope. Had a nickname for everyone.
And George also, I mean, George had you saw his desk back in the day, Carlito. He had the messiest desk in the history of Cigar Aficionado, but he knew exactly where everything was. And when you asked him for a phone number or something, he didn't go digging for it. He had it up in his head. George was a force of nature. Fun to work with.
Yeah, I love that. Force of nature, no question.
Without a doubt, George. I mean, there's so many stories about George. The best story about George, and we've heard it on the show, was that one time when he started there, Gordon gave him 10 cigars to smoke, and he got 9 out of the 10, and then he continued. I'm not going to reveal the company, but it was a company that supposedly used 2 different bands on the cigar. Until this day, George still fights with Gordon, and everybody who asked that he got the 10 cigars are correct. So that's the type of person that George was. Like Carlito says, the Pope.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to bring Mr. David Savona back on the show for another round because, like I said, this could go on for days. In the meantime, we're going to have to wrap it up before we get thrown off air. El Papo del Humo, some last words, please.
Well, again, it's so interesting to hear David, you know, I have the greatest respect and admiration, but it's not about that. To listen and to reminisce and to reinforce the things that I believe in my heart, but with day-to-day challenges and day-to-day work, you kind of, you get off track. And to listen to David and the philosophy of Cigar Aficionado, I just want to say thank you, David. I am honored to be someone that I consider you a dear friend, but not as a friend, but as a professional, as a professional editor, as someone that has been so equal in the world of judgment with everyone. No one is better, no one is worse. It doesn't matter if you're small, it doesn't matter if you're big. You give everyone the same and equal opportunity to shine. And I think that you're on the right track. Continue to do what you do. You're a young man. There's so much greatness coming your way. And I'm just proud to be, it's proud to be a small part of it. So David, keep up the great work. I hope you accept another invitation. There's so much more to talk about. I didn't even ask you a question, and I have a lot of questions to ask, but it's all good. Like you say, it's all about celebrating life, and that's what we all do together. Without you, we would not be able to reach the end consumer. And it's very, very important that we continue to, not to promote, but to guide people how to enjoy themselves, how things should be done, the correct way or the most enjoyable way. And you have been a Bible of information. I take my hat off to Marvin, to Gordon, of course. I know he's your mentor, and to me, myself, the respect I have for Gordon. Gregory is doing an incredible job. I mean, it keeps going forward, and I love that. You have an incredible staff. Thank you for accepting this invitation, and thank you for being who you are, and never change, my friend.
Thank you very much, Carlito. I'm honored to have you say that. It was a pleasure to be here with you, Jeremiah, Jose, Melanie. Thank you all for being such warm and inviting hosts. I really appreciate being here. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Dave, I mean, we go way back. We didn't have time to talk about the Yankees or anything like that, but
thank God you didn't have time to talk about the Yankees.
Gordon mom may be listening. Boston Red Sox, because I have my son-in-law listening, who's a Yankee. Yeah. Boston Red Sox.
Forget about that. We have when you have 27 championships like we have, and we're worth $4.5 billion. Then you can talk. But anyway, David, listen, it was an honor. It was an honor.
Checkmate.
Just blew a 3-point lead.
Yeah, David, look, thank you for accepting the invitation. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. It's been enlightening. I think a lot of things you covered made a lot of people understand how Cigar Aficionado works. This will go on YouTube, and thousands of people will also see it. We'll keep posting it like we did with Gordon, with Ernesto, and all the people we've had here. This is not about selling a brand. This is about people. This is about the struggles that everybody has gone through. Because like I've said many times, people see big companies, but nobody ever takes the time to go back in history and see all the time, the blood, sweat, and tears that companies go through to bring, in my opinion, the greatest industry in the world. So for us, big hug to Manuela, to Max, and you try to be safe and behave yourself.
Thanks.
Absolutely, Professor. This program is what unites us, and it illustrates to the world that we're all the same and we are all one. Doesn't matter how big, how small, how you are. If you have the passion, if you enjoy the better things of life, and you enjoy just being together, you love human beings, and you just want to spread the love, this is what this program's about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like Carlito says, it's all about people. Like Marvin says, it's all about the reader, right, David? And
absolutely.
At the end of the day, I think they're all saying the same thing, exactly. David, thank you very much. It's a huge honor on behalf of the Fuente family and teams, on behalf of the Meerapfel family and teams, on behalf of the professor, Mr. Jose Blanco, on behalf of Melanie Sisco. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate you being around the table with us today. You are a true gentleman, a true man of passion, a true man of honor, a true man of communication. Without you, this industry would not be the same. The cigar aficionado would certainly not be the same. And we're blessed to have been able to take a few minutes, or rather a few hours of your time now, and communicated what's laying behind your soul and behind your heart to people, hopefully for generations to come. You're an inspiration to all of us. We're eternally grateful. We send you our love, our respect, and please be safe, my friend.
Thank you so very much.
On behalf of... Go ahead, Professor.
For next week, we're going to have the pleasure to have Dr. Gabi Kafi with us. He is the founder and the president of the Boutique Cigar Association. And like Carlito says, this is not about the biggest or the smallest. We give an opportunity everybody to express themselves, and our industry needs everybody to do a great job. Kafi has been one of the people that has fought that's fought a lot with the FDA. Every day he's digging into things coming up and doing what he has to do. So next week, tune in at the same time, Dr. Gabi Kafi, founder and president of the Boutique Cigar Association, for another show of Meerapfel Fuente meets me. I don't know why me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. David Savona. Until next time, be safe, take care of yourselves and of each other. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Hi, guys.
Bye-bye.
So long. God bless everyone. Be safe.
Thank you.